Good evening, everybody. I am going to be calling this meeting to order for Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 at 7 p.m. This meeting is now open and being live streamed. Please ensure that your cell phone is turned off, and if you are participating electronically, that your microphone is muted when not speaking. Public comments made during the meeting are audio and video recorded and shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. For more information about the collection, please contact the clerk's office. Before we go any further, I'm going to pass the mic to Councillor Richardson for the land acknowledgement.
Thank you. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that the town of Innisfil is situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. The town also acknowledges that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe peoples of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for their generous generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. As my understanding is, we have nobody who signed up for an open forum. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. No, there are no speakers this evening.
Thank you. All right, moving on. We're going to go to the approval of the agenda as amended. We have an item added, 10.1, a notice of motion by Mayor Dolan, who is joining us virtually, to be clear. Even though she's far, far away, she's still very active, which is a good thing, and we welcome her. I need a mover and a seconder for such, please. All right, Councillor Drudge, Councillor Constantine, all those in favor? Carried, thank you. If anybody has any disclosures of pecuniary interest or otherwise, feel free at this point in time or during the meeting to make the clerk's office aware. We will provide you with the necessary documentation to put it on record. Okay, tonight we have a presentation from Dr. Brian Ginn, PhD of CLM limnologist. I will be passing the microphone now to Councillor Drudge for the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I just wanted everybody to get to know Dr. Brian Gunn a little bit. So Dr. Brian Ginn, sorry, not Gunn, has been a lake scientist running the Lake Simcoe monitoring program at the LSRCA since 2008. Brian has a PhD from Queen's University and has studied over 500 lakes, investigating the impact on nutrients, climate change, invasive species, and other drivers of environmental change. Brian is one of 3 lake managers in Canada certified by the North American Lake Management Society and serves on their board of directors. Brian has presented 47 talks at major international conferences and authored 22 journal articles, including being twice nominated for the Best Paper Award in Lake Management and being in the top 5 most referenced articles in lake management. Just on another note, I'd like to acknowledge Don Goodyear, who's also in the audience tonight, and he is the General Manager of Integrated Watershed Management, and he's also here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drudge. The floor is yours, Dr. Ginn.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Drudge, and thank you, Mayor Dolan and members of Council for this opportunity to provide an update on the ecological state of Lake Simcoe and what we've been finding through our monitoring program. Start off with, so where Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority fits into the big scheme of monitoring on Lake Simcoe. Historically, monitoring on the lake was under the jurisdiction of the provincial government. Ministry of the Environment since the 1980s has looked after offshore water quality, looked after things like algae pollution complaints and so on. Since the 1950s, Ministry of Natural Resources has looked after all things fish-related. This left a giant data gap in the lake, specifically the near-shore water quality, or the area in the shallow waters closer to where people live, work, and play. Also, things like aquatic plants, invasive species, and so on were going unrecognized. So in 2008, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority started our own lake monitoring program, funded through our municipal partners, and we also work in conjunction and collaboration with our members at the province. Currently, the lake is managed by what's called the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. This became provincial law in June 2009. And at its heart, it's really about having a healthy and sustainable cold water fish community in Lake Simcoe. And cold water fish are the lake trout and the lake whitefish that during the warm summer weather kind of retreat to the cooler waters at the bottom of Kempenfelt Bay. Unfortunately, it's this part of the lake that also tends to run out of oxygen when there's a lot of algae and also decomposition going on in the water. So in order to have a healthy and happy cold water fish community for people to fish lake trout, lake whitefish, cisco, and so on, they need a target dissolved oxygen concentration in the water at the end of fall of 7 milligrams per liter, because oxygen is related to things like algae, nutrients in the water column, also the nutrients which are being washed off the land. This is where we get this 44-ton loading objective, which receives a lot of attention in the lake moving forward. So everything is interrelated. There's kind of a chain of events that take place. Why all the fuss about phosphorus? Phosphorus is a limiting nutrient, so we need some in small amounts. It really kickstarts the food web for the year. It allows us to have fish in the lake and algae and all the food that supports them and so on. But a lot is when you run into problems. So if you're a gardener or a homeowner, you probably know phosphorus is included in your fertilizer, which is used on your lawns, makes your tomatoes grow, makes your lawns nice and green. But too much when it gets into watercourses, it causes things like algal blooms, plant excessive growth, and also it causes problems in the water. And then when these things decompose, it leads to reduced oxygen as well. So we need a little bit, but too much causes problems, and that's why it's at the heart of the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. So this graph, which I'm showing here on the top left, this is the total phosphorus load per year going into Lake Simcoe from 2000 to 2020. The height of those bars on the graph is the total amount which is going in. The dashed line kind of across the center is the 44-ton loading objective. And you can see the height of the graph of each bar on the graph varies from year to year moving forward. Different colors on each bar is the different sources which is coming through. The largest part, the green, is the tributaries. So that's the total input of nutrients from all the rivers that are going in there. As well, there's things like the atmospheric contribution that's falling from the sky and precipitation, septic tanks, water pollution control plants, and so on. You can see there's a lot of variation where it's going up and down. In behind it, there's kind of an icy blue mountain range type map. That's the total tributary flow volume, which is going into Lake Simcoe. And you can see the years with the highest bars on it. So years like 2008, 2013, 2017, for example, are also the year with the highest flows. And this is because the tributaries are responsible for driving the phosphorus into Lake Simcoe. The years with the highest amount of tributary flows also have the years with the highest phosphorus loads. Now, as I said, phosphorus loads running off the landscape are related to phosphorus in the lake. And this graph at the lower left shows the total spring phosphorus concentration in Lake Simcoe. This is the hypothetical maximum amount of nutrients which is in the lake each year, also from 2000 through to 2023. The green dashed line is the LSPP target, and you can see that we're well below that in terms of the nutrients which are actually in the lake. The graph on the right-hand side is the end of summer dissolved oxygen concentrations. This is the minimum amount of oxygen which is in the deep water in Kempenfelt Bay. And you can see that purple dashed line is the LSPP target of 7 milligrams per liter. So what you should be seeing on this graph is as those bars go up and down from year to year, the amount of phosphorus in the lake and that oxygen level should also be varying up and down. But what we're seeing in Lake Simcoe is something completely different which is happening. And this has really turned on our heads how we manage lakes across North America. So what we have is phosphorus loads running off the landscape, phosphorus concentration in the lake, and also oxygen are interrelated. And there's well-defined empirical relationships between these. If we know one, we can calculate the other two, and we can actually predict for them. So if you increase the amount of phosphorus going into the lake, that's when you have problems with nutrients, you have algal blooms and so on, and you wind up with lower oxygen. To manage your lake and fix these problems, the approach is to decrease phosphorus loading. And that's what the LSPP is working towards, decreased phosphorus concentration and higher oxygen. But what if it doesn't work? And that's what we're starting to see in Lake Simcoe. So this little box graph on the left-hand side just kind of shows these mathematical models that we had and how we figure them out and how we predict. And at Lake Simcoe, this model, which has been used around the world since the 1960s, is actually broken in Lake Simcoe, and we noticed this starting around 2010 or so. And that's what we've been working on, and especially we've really been delving into investigate this over the past 5 years. So what we have come up with is something which is called phosphorus decoupling. So basically the phosphorus running off the landscape is decoupled from the environmental condition of the lake. Lake Simcoe is actually doing quite well, but it's the phosphorus concentrations that are varied up and down. And there's kind of 3 different hypotheses that we're working on. First of these is how the nutrients are reaching the lake have changed. Due to climate change, we're getting precipitation differently. Most years, we're getting warmer, wetter winters, so we're getting a lot more rain instead of snow in winter. This past winter has been an exception. We've got a more classic Canadian winter, which is going on, which is good for the lake and how we manage it. And we're also getting, in summertime, we're getting a lot more intense summer downburst storms. So we're getting a lot of these flashy thunderstorms that drop a lot of water in a short amount of time. So the tributary volume of water, which is being pushed out through the rivers, is actually going up and increasing based on these precipitation and these sudden events and the seasonality and the timing of this. And this picture in the top right-hand corner is just the bridge on Davis Drive in Newmarket after one of these summer events that dumped about 60 millimeters of rain in a very short amount of time. So we know exactly how much nutrients are going into the lake. We can tell you exactly to the kilogram. Each one of those bars on that graph represents about 3 million data points per year that we use to manage Lake Simcoe. Inside the lake is a different story, and the nutrient cycling, so once these nutrients get into the lake, how they're being used, where they're going has also changed. And this has to do with invasive mussels, zebra mussels, quagga mussels, and also invasive plants that are in the lake as well. The amount, the type, and the timing of nutrient delivery and how it's being used has changed. Likewise, what happens to the nutrients in the lake has also changed. Used to be captured in algae, used to go into producing fish, the big lake trout that we all like to catch and so on. Now it's being captured by quagga mussels and it's going into plants instead. So where the nutrients are going has also changed inside the lake. So I'll show a couple of maps that we did, some of the research projects that we're doing. This map just shows where zebra mussels were located in the lake. The blue area in the lake shows where the zebra mussels are located, usually in the shallow water, less than 20 meters. The darker the blue color on that map means a higher population of zebra mussels are in that area. When we first did this study in 2009, zebra mussels made up about 87% of all the mussels in the lake. Through time, we repeated this study in 2015, repeated it in 2023, and now zebra mussels are probably functionally extinct in Lake Simcoe. They arrived, they set up, they cleaned the water, and then they really ran out of food. And that's because they need warm water, they need shallow water, they need hard surfaces, and they need lots of food. And when they outcompete each other for lots of food, that's when they wound up in extinction. But you're probably thinking we still see a lot of mussels in the lake, and they are actually a second species of invasive mussels, which are quagga mussels. Look very, very similar to zebra mussels, but they're very ecologically different as well. Everything that limited the zebra mussels, which needed warm water, hard substrates, lots of food, the quagga mussels can survive through. They like cold water, they can live on mud, and they can also survive long periods without food. And as you can see, that kind of the little corally color on those maps show you where the highest densities of quagga mussels are located. And you can see there's been a large increase over that same period. And now 99% of all the mussels in the lake are these quagga mussels. And this is where the devil is really in the details. Quagga mussels have invaded the deep water environment of Lake Simcoe. And because of that, it's really changed where nutrients are going in the lake and where they're winding up, and also how the fish are being produced and processed within the water. So this little graphic on the side, on kind of the right-hand side, it shows before 1995. If you were around Lake Simcoe then, you probably remember the water probably had a greenish tinge to it. There were lots of algae in the water columns and so on. Phosphorus was running off the landscape, went out into the center of the lake. In the 1990s, the zebra mussels invaded, and on kind of the left-hand side of that graphic, you can see the water is now blue. It's a lot clearer. Light is penetrating deeper. There's been the algae were eaten by the zebra mussels, which is what they use for food. Large increase in the amount of plants, and that's because the sunlight is reaching the bottom. Anywhere in the lake where sunlight reaches the bottom is where plants could grow. Up in the corner, this shows the filtering rate of the zebra and the quagga mussels as well. It shows you how many billions of liters per hour which are being filtered. And they filter a lot. Currently, in the deep water, they filter about 21 billion liters per hour. That's about almost 8,400 Olympic-sized swimming pools, which are being filtered just by these mussels in the deep water below 20 meters depth. Across the entire lake, they can filter a volume equivalent to Lake Simcoe about every 3.5 days. So that's why there's no algae in the lake and the water is so clear, is because it's being processed and removed by these mussels. And what's happening, especially with the deep water and this large increase in the amount of mussels in the deep water environment, all those nutrients, all those phosphorus, which used to be up in the water column, are being pulled to the very bottom of the lake, resulting in clear water and also kind of a nutrient storage at the very bottom of Lake Simcoe. So they're removing a lot of these particles, which are nutrient-rich, but they're also leaking out a liquid form of these nutrients to the tune of about 2.5 tons per day. So where do these leaked kind of liquid nutrients go to? And that goes into the aquatic plants and also the macroalgae. So this graph here just shows in Cook's Bay the change in the aquatic plants from 1980 through to 2023. The green is the vascular plants. They're the aquatic plants, Eurasian water milfoil and so on, that people are probably familiar with. They look like plants on land. They get their nutrients from the sediment and they're rooted to the bottom of the lake. The blue and the red are macroalgae. They look like plants, but they're not. They're more like a freshwater seaweed, and they get their nutrients from the surrounding water columns. And this is what thrives on that liquid nutrient that those zebra mussels are putting off. So you can see the red bars in 2018, 2019, that was starry stonewort, an invasive species which was in the lake. It almost wiped out the vascular plants that we have in the lake as well and kind of took over. There's a population crash in 2020, but now since then, native macroalgae are coming back and it's thriving on this liquid nutrient which is being released as well. So one other thing that we had this past summer is we had our first lake-wide blue-green algal bloom in Lake Simcoe in recent history. There are reports from the 70s and 80s of algal blooms, but nobody has the records from back then about what type of algae they were. This is blue-green algal bloom. These are the harmful algal blooms that we don't want to see in Lake Simcoe. Our monitoring staff first discovered it on July the 2nd, and that picture on the left-hand side shows a green wave, which is washing in on Hawkstone Beach in Oromadonte. This was significant of one of these blue-green algal blooms. We were on the lake the next day. That middle picture just kind of shows the surface of the water with these algal particles on it as well. Previously, we had small surface scums in October that used to kind of pop up along the shoreline, nothing significant, but this was our first lake-wide bloom in recent memory. The picture on the far right shows our bottom viewing unit that we have on the boat, and you can actually see the algal bloom stretching from the surface to a depth of about 4 meters. That's circled by that yellow circle. As you can see from the graphs I previously showed, there's not a lot of nutrients in Lake Simcoe. It's around 6.5 to 7 micrograms per liter, which is well below the provincial water quality objective. This was likely caused by climate change, and we're seeing these algal blooms pop up across Ontario just because of climate, with long, hot summers, wind mixing, and so on, which are going on. It's related to weather, which is going on in the lake, and we've seen one in Lake Simcoe, and we now have a harmful algal bloom monitoring program at the Conservation Authority that we're trying to understand the driving factors between these, because algal blooms affect the reputation of a lake. It affects our recreational use of the lake, and it also affects our drinking water security, where we use it for our drinking water. So at the heart of our monitoring program is adaptive lake management. It's science-based. We monitor, we evaluate, we reevaluate, and we keep monitoring to understand what's happening in Lake Simcoe. And that's because the problems we're seeing in the lake now will not be the same in 10 years from now. And Lake Simcoe is not the same lake that it was in 2009 when the Lake Simcoe Protection Act was passed. That's because effective lake management, you have to look at the entire picture. Phosphorus loads receives a lot of attention in the media and so on, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. We have to look at everything that's going on to understand how Lake Simcoe is changing. We also have to take an adaptive approach to it. Adaptation and adapting our methods is mentioned 43 times in the Lake Simcoe Protection Plan. They knew from the onset that we had to do that, and that's where we're at now, is reevaluating how to manage the lake for the future. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to entertain any questions if somebody has one.
Thank you, Dr. Ginn. Anybody have anything they wish to ask the doctor at this moment in time? Okay, Alex, or Councillor Waters, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. Thanks very much for the presentation. It's always very good. 2 questions I have for you. One is that the Conservation Authority's mandate has changed over the past few years, and usually funding for water quality, they're not supposed to do it anymore. It's more around stormwater management. How is your research funded today different from it was a few years ago?
So the Lake Simcoe Protection Act has a clause in it for funding the Conservation Authority and our lake program as well, and we're also funded through municipalities through special interest, and also through the province, and also through the federal government.
Okay, thank you. My second question has to do with the an element that always seems to interest me, but very rarely gets mentioned, is the whole salt situation in Lake Simcoe, which is, quite a dangerous element and could, a lake could end up dead by 2050. That's what I've read. What's your interpretation of that?
Yeah, so salt levels are increasing in Lake Simcoe, and it's due to salt being applied on hard surfaces. So any paved surface and so on which uses salt is going on. So the background concentration for the lake is about 12 milligrams per liter. We're currently at about 60. The guideline for the first harmful effects where you start to lose the most sensitive species is around 120 milligrams per liter. So we are working on a management program to find alternatives to using salt to kind of stop this trend. I've seen in the media people saying Lake Simcoe is going to be seawater in 50 years or something. That's not the case. So the concentration in the lake now is 60 milligrams per liter. Concentration of seawater is 19,000. So at the current rate, it would take probably about 48,000 years for us to reach the seawater concentration.
Perfect, thank you.
Mayor Dolan?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ginn. It was a great presentation, and also to GM Don Goodyear for attending. Thank you. I have to say that we had CEO Rob Baldwin here a few weeks ago presenting to us, and I was virtual, and now you two here tonight, and I'm virtual again. So I just want you to know it's nothing personal. It just happened, unfortunately, to be a coincidence. But thank you so much. I wanted to just ask a couple of questions. First was, I've heard that there is now we're moving forward, or the province and the feds are moving forward with the treatment plant for phosphorus on the West Holland tributary. And what do you think, if any, impact that will have on our phosphorus levels in the lake?
Do you want to handle that one?
Thanks, Mayor Dolan. Maybe I'll try and tackle that one. So if the plant goes ahead as designed, they're hoping to get around 2 tons of phosphorus reduction on average per year. So that would be a big benefit to the overall loading numbers. 2 tons is up to 5% reduction, so pretty significant.
Thank you so much for that. And the other thing I wanted to point out in that graph that was shown earlier, where it showed the sources of phosphorus, and the bright yellow piece was wastewater treatment plants that surround Lake Simcoe. And I used to know exactly how many there were that discharged into Lake Simcoe, and I don't have that number at the top of my head anymore. But it was about 7%, if I recall, back in the day, of the total phosphorus that water treatment plants were responsible for, about 7%. And I just wondered, is that about the same today, Dr. Ginn, or is that fair to ask you about that math?
It's a little bit lower, but similar. Yeah, it's a little bit lower, but it's similar than that. So yeah.
It's just we hear a lot from the public that municipalities, and particularly ours, people tend to not understand that there's more than just the Alcona wastewater treatment plant discharging into Lake Simcoe, and also they don't understand the vast amount of treatment that is put into that plant in order to reduce the amounts of phosphorus that go into the lake. So sometimes if we listen to a bit of the rhetoric, we'll hear about that. We did hear this summer that we were the reason for the blue-green algae blooms because of our wastewater treatment plant. So I would also then just wanted to follow up a little bit on the comments around sodium or salt earlier from Councillor Waters. I'm dating myself now, but I was appointed as chair of the the South Georgian Bay Lake Simcoe Source Protection Committee way back in 2007. And my very first project manager was Don Goodyear. And we've worked on projects there because for source water and salt runoff. And again, it becomes a bit of a balancing act between, I'm getting just this past snow event that we had not that long ago, I'm getting nasty emails saying, why aren't our roads bare? Why are we putting sand and not salt down on our roads? We use, I think, Director Bowman will correct me if I'm wrong, but about 10% salt to 90% sand. on our roads, and we do that because we care so much about Lake Simcoe. But the expectation from the residents that they're going to have these bare roads, we got to work on that messaging, and also parking lots, and the Smart About Salt program through through education and making sure that, and I get it's a liability issue. People want to, businesses in particular, want to prevent the slip and fall and the lawsuits, including municipalities. But we also want to be conscious for the environment. So it's a real balancing act for us. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Dillon. Okay, does anybody have anything else they wish to add? Okay, Kevin, Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a question that popped in my mind with the excess snow that we've had this winter. Obviously, that's going to end up into the lake. Do we? How do we deal with that? Like some of the stormwater management practices that we have in the urban areas, will it be able to handle that? Is there overflow from that? Or what happens if we get too much snow runoff all at the same time?
Yeah, it depends on how the snow melts. If it melts slowly, then it's kind of like a natural, process. Melting fast would be bad because it would cause like a lot of flooding and so on as well. So there's lots of storage left in the lake. So at the moment right now, despite the fact the past few warm days and also the rain that we had kind of last week, it seems that the snowpack is holding the water back. So it's going to be a slow melt is what it's looking at like at the moment, but that could change over the next few days.
Anybody else? Okay, I have a few questions myself. First of all, I remember I attended the annual general meeting, and this is where I first heard of the starry stonewort years ago during my last term, and I was surprised when I sat with you and I said, well, the phosphorus is being cleared up by the mussels, and it was like, yes, but it's releasing another type, which now has caused problems for ice fishermen because the ice doesn't get as thick and they can't get out far in the lake, and the fishing and the fish are forced to go down lower where there's less oxygen. And then I'm like, okay, well, but that kind of solves the problem. And then it was described to me that that creates an opportunity for another invasive species to tag in and cause even more chaos. So I understand, I've been following this myself for the past number of years. The question I have is actually twofold. A lot of what people who are building around, the communities that are building around Lake Simcoe now, they're looking at intensification. They're not looking at sprawl. So they're reducing the green space and the ability to put the phosphorus in artificially into the soil. That, however, does that reduce the phosphorus overall? And as a side note, does that also increase the temperature of the water that goes into the lake because of the intensification? How related are they?
I think stormwater is mandated by the development, I believe.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor, I think two components to that one. So intensification is generally perceived as a good way to grow from the Conservation Authority's perspective, as opposed to kind of greenfield development, a little less impactful, environmentally speaking. Stormwater absolutely is a requirement of all new development, and in the Lake Simcoe watershed, there's a requirement to manage pre- and post-development water balance and nutrient balance. So there is a requirement for the phosphorus levels not to be increased through new development. We do have an offsetting program, so where that is not feasible because of site constraints or what have you, then there's an offsetting fund that we maintain, and then we do projects elsewhere in the watershed to rebalance the phosphorus loads or groundwater recharge. I'm sorry, did I get
That's one aspect. I was asking about the temperature as well. Does the intensification affect the temperature of the water as it goes to the lake through the water treatment facilities?
Through you, I think runoff over land would be warmer than recharge and then subsequent discharge. We do our best to maintain the same amount of recharge through development, in part to help with those thermal impacts. But I think, yeah, there are some thermal impacts certainly to development because there's more runoff than previously.
Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen. I know I can speak for council when I say we appreciate everything you've brought to us tonight. It's very informative as always, and it's always important considering what we want to have generational families in Innisfil, so we want them to have a lake to swim in, as we did when we were children. I'm going to need a mover and a seconder then for this presentation and position. All right, moved by Councillor Drudge, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. To my understanding, we don't have any delegations at this moment in time. So we are going on to item 7, County Council, Municipal Association, Conservation Authorities and such. So this is the opportunity, as Mayor Dolan says, for everyone to express or share what they've done with everything outside the council chambers. Does anybody wish to share? All right, Councillor Saunders, then Councillor Ices.
Thank you. Excuse me. We had our IAC meeting yesterday, and we were proud to announce that we have our delegation that is going to the Senior Accessibility Board in Barrie on Monday for our first presentation so they can learn about what we do in Innisfil, and it's the first of many. The next couple will be Zooming, so it's good to see that our little board is being recognized right across Ontario, so it's really good to see that with the help of Kim Creamer, which is amazing. Thanks.
Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just maybe an update on the Nowasaga Valley Conservation Authority. The board has been very busy lately. First of all, dealing with the retirement of our CAO, Doug Hevner, back in December. The hiring process for the new CAO is very active. The second thing that the board has been dealing with is the request from Ormadane to amalgamate with Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. Later on in the agenda, there is a letter from the board outlining its response to that. In the future, this council will further discuss that. We had some discussion last council meeting about the challenges of amalgamating two conservation authorities, and that topic, that subject kind of continued, and you can see that in the letter that's later on the agenda. The NVCA is categorically against such a move, and there is a procedure moving along that we will be having further discussion on this. And I believe there'll be a staff report in the future on this as well. So that's an update from the NVCA.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. I see Mayor Dolan has her hand up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, a couple of committees to report on. One is the Traffic Safety and Advisory Committee, which has met since we were last in session, and we had a delegation from the parent council and the principal from Goodfellow School on some issues related to walking children in that area. They did emphasize that they appreciated all the work we have done in the area, but also that there was more we could do, and they had some suggestions. And thank you to Councillor Zanella for logging on for that conversation as well. And I believe staff were taking some next steps with the staff and the parent council to see what we could do to address their issues. We also, in response to a group of staff that did a lot of statistic and data recovery, we did have a presentation by Christian Miele, who is the director for, or the manager for transportation for County of Simcoe. We presented a number of county intersections in the town of Innisfil that were problematic, but instead of just saying, geez, this is a bad intersection, staff really dove in and did all the data gathering and the warrant gathering and offered different suggestions for each intersection. So I was really pleased when Christian came to the TSAC that he had some updates for us on some intersections. So the one we already knew about and that's budgeted for and is going forward is Yonge Street and the 9th with a roundabout. But what we were told is that the 6th, and we also know that the 4th and Yonge Street in Churchill is also getting signalization. But I was really pleased to hear that they're now going to move forward with signalization at the 6th line and Yonge Street. You'll know that's been a very contentious and dangerous intersection with that historic gravesite on the one corner on the southwest corner. There's a lot of accidents in that area, so very glad to hear that. 10 Side Road and the 9th line near the Knox School, they're considering a 4-way stop for that area. And the 7th line in Yonge and the 10th line and the 10th Side Road and 6th line are also going to be undergoing some intersection improvements, but unfortunately don't quite meet the warrants at this time. So I thought it was a lot of progress, and I'm really, really happy to staff for taking such a proactive approach on that. And also one thing that we found out at that meeting that I wasn't aware of is that pending county council approval, there will be a closure this summer of the 10th Side Road at the 5th line. This is to do some work. If you recall, last summer, Yonge Street and Bradford was closed between the 9th and the 10th, I believe. So this will take about 6 weeks to do this work, and there'll be detours around that area. The idea is that they can save significant dollars, the hundreds of thousands of dollars, by closing the road instead of keeping one lane of traffic open the whole time. Also, the project gets done quicker. Again, this isn't improved yet, but this is something that will be coming to County Council sometime shortly. So that's an update from TSAC. And then I also wanted to tell you that the Ontario Small Urban Municipalities met on March the 8th to work out more final details on the OSAM conference that happens starting April the 30th. This year, the host of that conference will be the town of Collingwood. And that's all I have to report, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to point everyone's attention to the screen. That committee isn't not formed yet, so I'm not reporting on it, but I'm just gathering your attention to see if there's anyone in town who's interested in sitting on the Innisfil Sustainability Advisory Committee, which we hope to have running by June. So if you have an interest in conserving and preserving the environment in and around Innisfil and reducing our impacts, that you might be interested in putting your name forward for this committee. So we just want to drag your attention to it. It has to be done before March 20th. So keep that in mind, and we hope you do apply. Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else they wish to add? Okay, then it's my turn. To further the TSAC minutes with Mayor Dolan, there was an update on the automated speed enforcement cameras that are being put into play in Innisfil. And there's been a lot of talk on social media being referred to it as a cash grab. One thing I want to clarify is the committee is directing council, or recommending to council rather, that any funds that are derived from these cameras are put into traffic safety initiatives. So in essence, what we're looking to do is not put it into a fund that we can tap into. We're looking to put it into something that would make roads safer, the walk to school program, supporting them, the walking school buses, bollards, different means and ways of controlling traffic and making it safer for our young ones as they walk, bike, drive around town as they get older. So this is something that if anybody has a concern about, just know that everything that's going into this program is to make it more safe for the residents themselves. On a side note, county was we held county council yesterday, And there were numerous meetings, and one of them was a public meeting regarding council composition at the county level. There were two speakers, a ward council, I think it was Ward 2 Councillor Jonathan Scott from Bradford was one of them, and a former county councillor came up and they expressed their concerns, but we received a numerous number of letters, both pro and con, to reducing the size of council. It's been up for debate now, so there's discussion happening, but on the 25th, it's going to be coming back to county council. The bylaw amendment's going to be brought to council and voted on, at which point then, if it does pass, it's going to be passed down to all the 16 communities in Simcoe County. So everyone in the community, every council will have their say on the matter as part of the triple majority. So we have to see if we get 9 communities in favor of passing the bylaw, and then if it does that, then it goes into the third phase of the triple majority. If it doesn't, then it dies on the floor. If 9 communities vote against the reduction of county council, then at that point it goes no further. So that's something to keep aware of. So the discussion will be coming to this table, this council chamber, and we just have to express ourselves and make our point clear as to why. Thank you very much. That's for that. So we're going on to item 8, the consent list. If anybody wishes to have anything pulled or discussed, make it known, please, before we go into committee of the whole, and then anything that is not pulled when we wrap up committee of the whole will be considered to be moved. So we're going for A1, adoption of the minutes of the special council meeting February 26th. Item A2, council meeting dated February 26th. Item B1, the summary report of the February 11th Innisfil Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. The reports of the various committees, that's B2. C1, staff report, DSR 04025, in services. Sorry, yes? Oh, I missed, which one did I miss?
B2.
B2, sorry. Summary report of Innisfil, I chair the damn thing. Chair the Innisfil Audit Advisory Committee meeting. Okay, then we go into C1. Staff report DSR 040-25, in-service 2025 water wastewater rate approval. Councillor Waters?
Just a comment. I just want to congratulate on in-services and moving to a tiered rate, and the fact that I think it's 46% of those people are going to see a rate drop because they're going to be in the first tier. And it's a good lesson that if you use less water, you're going to pay less money. That if you use more water, you're going to pay more money. So a good model to move to, because it most definitely educates consumers about conservation. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
So then we're on to item C2. I believe Mayor Dolan wishes to speak on this, or do you wish to pull it?
I'd just like to speak to it if I could, Deputy Mayor. And so I wanted to acknowledge, and I believe he's in the audience, although I cannot see him, former Mayor Brian Jackson. I was pleased to put forward his name for this park, and I think a well-deserved recognition. Mayor Jackson is the longest serving mayor in the town of Innisfil. He was my mayor from between 1997 and 2010. And to serve that long in the big chair is not an easy task and should be commended. And I would also acknowledge that it was through some pretty tumultuous times in Innisfil. We needed a very strong leader. So thank you, Mayor Jackson, for allowing us the opportunity to have your name on Jackson Park.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan.
Deputy Mayor, I know it's a little out of order, but I wondered if we could ask the former mayor if he had any comments.
I would welcome him to the mic at his leisure.
Good evening, Mayor Dolan, Deputy Mayor, and members of council, staff, and other guests. It's quite a wonderful experience being here this evening, not for that particular item, I'll get to that in a moment, but it's wonderful to see local democracy in action, considering what's going on around us and our neighbors. So it's wonderful to see you folks working hard to keep Innisfil a great spot to live and work and raise a family. Thank you to council for allowing me to have my name on that particular park. I've had the opportunity to see some of the details that are going to occur. I think it's just wonderful. As we're all are aware, parks are a critical component of making a community. And I look forward to watching that particular community grow over the next few years as it grows and develops with the various phases of construction. Again, thank you to everyone. It was a great honor to be here this evening and to see that in action and see all of you in action. Thank you again.
Thank you. Okay, so we're off to item D, or D1, staff report, single source purchase for replacement of fire records management system. Okay. E1, the bylaw of the Corporation of Town of Innisfil to repeal the appointment of Mike Malinishin as deputy treasurer. Okay. E2, the bylaw of Corporation of the Town of Innisfil to appoint Kathleen McDonald as the deputy treasurer. I would like to welcome Kathleen here tonight. We have all had a chance to speak with her and find out the character that she brings to the town, and I am very impressed with all she has done so far, and I look forward to seeing the good work that she does with the town moving forward. Item F1, the council discretionary grant regarding the Rotary Club. Nothing? Okay. Correspondence for information, item G1, the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority regarding the amalgamation of conservation authorities. Okay, it's just for the public. It's there to read on the town's website if you wish to learn more about how things are unfolding. Item G2, Community for Kids, thank you letter. Item G3, proclamation regarding Purple Day epilepsy in Simcoe County for March 26th. Motions, H for motions for which notice has been given. I believe we have Mayor, not yet? No? Okay.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The notice has been provided. It shows up on the agenda as item 10.1, and the motion will be added tomorrow morning so the public is able to review the wording of that notice. The motion will be considered by council at the next meeting on March the 26th.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so nothing's pulled. Makes it quicker for everybody. That's nice. The consent list continue. All right, so that the consent list for March 12th and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as resolutions of council. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Constantine, Councillor Drodge. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Consideration to adopt I'm sorry. Oh, there's no committee tonight. Okay, so we're going off to 10.1, the notice of motion by Mayor Dolan, supporting local and Canadian businesses. I'll leave it up there for everyone to read for a moment. So this is something that's actually very important, supporting our local businesses. As I learned with the Economic Development Committee this past week that 99.8% of businesses in Canada are locally owned small business operators. So to do something like this, to go support our people is foremost at the front of many people's minds. I think this is a very good thing to do. All right, moving on, announcements. Is anybody, all right, so we're gonna go to, just 1 second here. All right, so I'm gonna start off with Ward 1. Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This Saturday, March 15th, There's a free skate at the IRCC between 12:30 and 1:50, and that's put on by Dental Smile Solutions. So we thank them for that. And when you get to the end of your March break and you want the kids to burn off some more energy, you can take them there. And also, we'd like to congratulate the Innisfil Spartans on a great season. Unfortunately, it's over a little bit sooner than they would have hoped, as they lost in the first round to the Stainer Siskins. But a great season overall, and they look forward to everyone's support in next year.
Thank you, Councillor. I see, Councillor Considine, you do not have anything? Okay, then Councillor Richardson.
Just a quick reminder that this week is March break activities at the Lakeshore Idea Lab and Library. This past Sunday, I got to attend for the first time the 5th annual Mother-Daughter Empowerment. As a mom of boys, I have not been able to go, but I got to go this weekend with a friend of mine and her daughter. It was a great event put on by Tara and her team. Good job. On March 18th is the Teen Volunteer Info Session. So all those teenagers, all those high school students that need volunteer hours, now's the time to pop into the library on March 18th between 3:30 and 4:30 to get some information about how you can use the library, can help you get your volunteer hours. Also that evening on the 18th from 6 to 7 is becoming an active ally presentation. And then at the end of the month on March 29th is the 8th annual CD Saturday. So put those on your calendar. All you gardeners, it's a fun event to learn more about gardening at the library.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one item for Ward 4, Community Partners Meet and Greet at the Lions Hall. It's March 15th from 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock.
Councillor Zanella? Nothing. Councillor Saunders?
This weekend, we joined the RVH fundraiser for the Polar Plunge at Friday Harbor. It was a really cold day, and thanks to Oliver for jumping. It was very cold, so he knows what it feels like now. And I believe they raised just shy of $14,000 for the event.
Councillor Drudge.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All March break at the Tanger Outlet, there's a free educational experience from 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. And you can go in through entrance 6. And this Sunday is the Innisfil Legion's regular general meeting at 1 p.m.
Okay. Mayor Dolan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just a couple of items. I wanted to thank the Innisfil Indian Association for hosting their Shiro's Gala again this year. It was well attended, even though it was a very miserable day, and I think very uplifting, particularly our very own panelist, Director Nicole Bowman, who spoke about being a female in a very male-dominated workforce. So thank you to that. It was really informative. I also wanted to say that I'm going to be participating in 2 panels over the next couple of weeks. One of them is the Mayor and CAO Relationship Building and Foundation for Success. So as the title says, it'll be CAO Gershow and myself, along with the CAO and Mayor of the municipality of Chatham-Kent. And we're going to be talking about how you make it work. It is not, you'd think it's an easy thing, but it is not an easy thing. And there's a lot of controversy in a lot of municipalities if you read Municipal World. So we're going to do our best to put our good spin on it. We've got about 160 participants signed up for this virtual session. So I hope we're able to give them some help. And I think on our front page when we do our presentation is going to be a picture of me helping CAO Gershow into the lake last week. So other duties as assigned, letting your mayor push you into in a frozen Lake Simcoe. The next presentation I'm involved in is March the 26th, and it's with Uber. So municipalities wanting to understand more about the relationship between the municipality and Uber. So I'm looking forward to that one as well. And then finally, I just wanted to say that I did attend the a visitation for a longtime friend of the community, Joan McGraw. Joan emigrated here from Ireland and had 7 children. And in 1966, she founded the South Simcoe Theatre. So I got to know her in the early 90s. She's a strong advocate for South Simcoe Theatre, and as you know, it's still going strong today. Her children were very happy to hear that the presence it still has in our community and how important it is to our community. They were very happy to hear that. So I was pleased to bring that message to her family. And that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. This recently, many members of council went to the Radiant Roots event at the local Idea Lab and Library. They were organized by Making Change. It was really good to see. I got some African food products, and I managed to get myself on some Jamaican spices, so Caribbean spices, which was really good. And it's good to see the community growing and feeling so comfortable in Innisfil, which is what we want. This past week, we had the open house for our community planning permit system and official plan review. There was a lot of people that came out, a lot of people taking interest. So I'm really impressed by the public for taking such an interest in this, because this is the future of our town. The staff and council listen to the public as to what you want to see Innisfil become. And this was an opportunity for their voices to be heard, and many people came out and made them heard. Upcoming, on the 14th, Chabad Innisfil is holding a Purim celebration beginning at 12:30. Purim begins, I believe, tomorrow night at sundown. So to all those who celebrate, happy Purim. On the 15th, at Churchill United, at 5 p.m. and 6:15, they're holding a St. Patrick's dinner, which is really good. It's delicious food every year, so it's worth attending if you have the time. And on March 19th, once again, our Idea Lab and Library seems to be a theme here, is holding the Innisfil Job and Career Fair between 2 and 6 p.m. I've been promoting this to all the youth that want to find work, or if they want something to do over the summer, or anybody who's looking for a job, period. This is a good way to work local, to remain local, and it gives you more time with the family. As everybody knows, we're still a bedroom community mostly, but that is slowly changing as we evolve. And I think this is a great opportunity to show people that when you come to Innisfil, we will not only provide you with assistance, we will also provide you with employees. That being all right. Then we're moving on to the confirming bylaw and adjournment. I need a mover and a seconder. That will be Councillor Richardson and Councillor Drudge. That this meeting be adjourned at 7:57 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody. Safe travels. Have a good evening.